Sport Fishing on the Fly is brought to you by Togen's Fly Shop, Maui Jim Sunglasses, and Hardy Rods and Reels. Well, today on the bench I want to tie you up the hot orange butt Carpet Caddis. It's a fly we use when the fish are aggressive but they're feeding just on the surface. It actually sits low in the water, so make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For the hook, we'll use a size 12 dry fly. We'll use some 8/0 rust thread to tie with, some 12/0 hot orange thread for the butt, some 8/0 rust thread for the body, some small copper wire for the rib. For the underwing, we'll use some brown Antron or Z-Lon, some natural elk hair for the overwing, and some Cree dry neck for the hackle. To start the fly off, I'm going to take my hot orange thread. I'm just going to get it on my hook, and I'm going to wind it back and form a small butt on the fly. And I'm going to go down the hook ends just a little bit and form that butt. Now that we have the butt on the fly, I've finished that thread off, and I'm going to put on my rust thread and get ready to tie it in. Now take your fine copper wire, your small copper wire. Just going to start it just behind the eye, move it back to where you ended your butt. So we want this just in front of the butt section. Now the wire is tied in. I'm actually going to form the body with the thread. I like to keep a thread body on here because I want it sitting very flush on the water. So just build up a small body on the fly, and again finish off about a ½ inch from the eye. You want it fairly far back from the eye to leave room for the head. Once the body's tied in, we're going to take that wire and we're going to rib it forward, and I like to put in about 5 to 6 ribs on the fly. Now the rib's tied in, take some of your Z-Lon or Antron, double it over your thread. So you form actually 2 wings, wrap it back slightly, and now when you cut it to length, you want it the length of the hook, just past the hook bend on an angle. Always cut it on a 45-degree angle and slowly snip it so it sprays out. Now that we have the underwing tied in, I'm going to take some elk hair. I'm going to pull off all that fluff on the end. I'm going to put it in my hair stacker, stack the material. I'm going to pull it out, and when I tie it in, I want it just past the length of the underwing. So we're going to measure up. There's about the underwing, go a little bit past it, and then when you tie it in, take 1 loose wrap, then another loose wrap, 2 loose wrap, and then tighten in. Tighten down, and this will get your elk to just splay out nicely. Now that we have the overwing tied in, I'm going to take one of my Cree hackles and just tie it in right behind the eyelet. Cut off my excess, and then I'm going to take about 4 or 5 wraps just to form a hackle on the fly. Now that we have the hackle tied in, I'm going to take all this material that I haven't cut yet because I want to finish right behind the eyelet. So I'm going to wrap my thread forward and whip finish right behind the eyelet. Now that you whip finished, we're going to trim off all this material, but first I want to trim my hackle flat. So I want this fly to be laying low in the water, so I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim off all that hackle that's sitting down under the hook. I'm going to leave the side and the top is fine, but just underneath. And then I'm going to pull up all this extra elk hair that we have, and I'm going to form a nice small head on the fly. So there it is, Don's hot orange butt Carpet Caddis. You know, it's a combination. I like to use that Antron for the underwing and the elk hair for the overwing because I can really gink it up. And I also, if you want this fly to sit up a little higher, put a hackle on the body. That'll really elevate the fly. But if you want it sitting low in the water, tie it this way. Big fish are lazy and they love sipping this off the top water, so make sure you have some in your fly box.